Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 3. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next table, and in this one I had put in 2 witnesses, Enoch, Elias, olive trees, and candlestick, and this came up exactly where you would expect the 2 witnesses to come up. That was in Revelation 11, just like the other video came up in Revelation 11 as well. And I didn't plan to do that next because it was in Revelation. I just realized that right now. So if you think about it, you would probably get these same terms merging in with these terms somehow, maybe a little bit further down from the matrix, because this one starts with verse 1 and this one starts with verse 3. So this one would be a little bit below this one. But in this one I had put in the 2 witnesses, and based on all the other tables that have been done in the Hebrew that I know of, the names Enoch and Elijah were coming up in those tables. So I had originally tried putting in Enoch and Elijah, and for some reason just Enoch was coming up, and I just couldn't understand why Elijah would not come up, but Enoch would. And I thought about it for a little while, and then I finally decided to try putting in Elias, which is how the name Elijah is written in the New Testament. And when I did that, sure enough, it popped up along with Enoch, and you can see the 2 names here. You can see Enoch going at an angle this way in the lavender, and you see Elias going at an angle this way in the bluish purple, and right between them you have my 2 witnesses, the 2 olive trees right here, the 2 olive trees, and my 2 witnesses. Amazingly, it comes up right between the 2 names and right where it talks about the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11. And so what I did when I was working on this table, it kind of bothered me that the E for Enoch was over here on this side. I wanted to try to get both names to come all in one row, and I played around with it for a while, and I finally was able to put something in to get both names in a row. And I decided to put in fire tongues. I just thought I'd try that, and when I tried that, it worked. I got both names to come up all in a row, but when I did that, amazingly, the imagery changed completely. In the original imagery, you had the 2 names sticking out this way, one going in one angle this way, the other one going the other angle that way. And then when I got both names to come up together, it formed a triangle. And you can see here it says the 2 candlesticks standing before the Lord. So these are the 2 candlesticks standing that's talked about in the book of Revelation, which is also a parallel to Zechariah 4:11. And I pointed this out in my 2 witnesses video, which if you'd like you can watch that for some more information, but I'll just point it out again real quick. If you go to Zechariah 4, you see that in Zechariah 4:11 it talks about the 2 candlesticks and the 2 olive trees. So you have 4 objects and the number 11, which I believe represents the 2 candlesticks or the 2 olive trees. And all 4 have the aspects of both, so it's really just 2 items, even though it's 4 items. And then when you go to Revelation 11:4, you see the parallel to that, because again you have the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks, so you have 4 items, but they're really just 2 items because each item has the aspects of both, so it's 2, either 2 candlesticks or 2 olive trees. And I believe that that's what the number 11 represents. And I believe it represents more than just that, but I'm not really going to get into that right now. I would like to talk about the 2 witnesses some more, maybe in another video. But right now I just want to point out the visual imagery that's created in these Bible codes. And as you can see, this time you have the 2 candlesticks standing, coming up between the 2. So again, it's identifying who these 2 are right in the middle. It's saying that they're clothed in sackcloth. So that's another identification right there. And it's the 2 candlesticks that are standing before the Lord. And it forms a triangle. And I had talked about how the temple of God, Revelation 11, is about measuring the temple of God, as well as Zechariah 4 also speaks of measuring the temple of God. And in the New Testament, Jesus is described as the cornerstone. And as you can see in Zechariah 4:7, he's described as the headstone. And in the Greek, that's actually the head of the corner, is how Jesus is described. And if I pull that up, I'll show you how that reads in the Greek. Okay, let's just pull this one up. And you see over here, this word right here is head, and this word right here is corner. And it's actually the word which means angle. It's an external angle. It's like when you have words like pentagon, or any word that ends in G-O-N, it forms an angle or corner. So for Jesus to be the head of the corner, it seems to imply that the top piece is angled because it goes at the top, and so it's that top angle or that top corner, which seems to imply a pyramidal shape. And as you see in the table, right here, you see that it's a pyramidal shape. Now, of course, in Zechariah 4, as well as in Zechariah 14, once the headstone is placed on the mountain or on the temple, the mountain becomes a plain. So, like I had said in my original video about the 2 witnesses, I don't believe God is interested in pyramidal schemes. He's interested in giving us an inheritance of equality, and that's exactly what's written in the Greek in the Septuagint. If you read the text in the Greek, it says that God gives us an inheritance of equality, and then you see in Zechariah 4 that the mountain becomes a plain, and that's also what happens in Zechariah 14. And to have more information about that, you could watch the video that I did some time ago on the 2 witnesses. But for now, I just wanted to point out the shape that's created. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that this also corresponds with the vision that Natan had seen when he saw the Mount of Olives split. And I'll just play it over here, and you can read the text. I may pause it and point some things out, but I'm just going to play it a little bit because this is the part where he talks about it. Okay, this is the part where he's talking about the mountain splitting in two. Okay, I'm just going to go back over that a little bit and point out what he said. Okay, he's saying, the rabbi's asking how it's going to happen, and he's saying, no, they will rise up. You know how on the Mount of Olives there are graves, right? So two of the dead people will rise, two dead people will come back to life, one from here and one from here, and it will split in two. That's how it will happen. So as you can see, Natan saw, let me get back to the table. He saw two people rise from their graves when the mountain split in two, and one will come out this way and the other one will come out that way once the mountain splits. So this matches the imagery. You see one of the witnesses going out this way and one of the witnesses going out the other way. And this, when you go to this table where it has the full name, it creates a triangle. So this is like the mountain before it splits, and then this is like the mountain when it splits. That's the imagery that I'm seeing with this table. And this is actually one of the things that convinced me that Natan's testimony is true. This is just one of the things that I had discovered in the scripture because of the parallel between Zechariah 4 and Zechariah 14. In Zechariah 4, you see where Zerubbabel, which is a type of Christ, measuring the temple and bringing the headstone, and is talking about the plummet line. The plummet line is actually, or the plummet is actually for measuring the temple. It's the headstone, but it's also over here, the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. It's also a measuring instrument for making a straight line down the middle. And right after measuring the temple, it talks about the two witnesses. And then when you go to Zechariah 14, you see over here in verse 4, so it makes a number 144, which I believe is significant. This is when Jesus stands on the Mount of Olives and the Mount of Olives splits. So it's the same imagery as Zechariah 4, and it's also the same imagery as Revelation 11, because again you have John measuring the temple, and right after that it talks about the two witnesses. So they all seem to parallel each other, and that's how I realized that the Mount of Olives actually represents the two witnesses. And I'm just about out of time, so I'm going to have to continue in the next video. Thanks.